Hi, I'm Bob Acton, the host of the Color in Ceramics podcast. My guest today is Mary Fox, a self-taught exploratory potter based in British Columbia, Canada, who has spent her entire life working at the wheel. Mary describes herself as someone who creates endlessly, and that single-minded focus has taken her from aspiring functional potter to internationally exhibited artist. These days, her passion has expanded to lifting up the next generation through her Legacy Project Apprentice Program, one of the only pottery apprenticeships in Canada. We talk about her work, surface design, color, her unconventional training, and what it means to mentor young potters. Please welcome Mary Fox. Mary, thanks for joining us on the Color in Ceramics podcast. We are pumped about having you here today. You are one of Canada's top potters, and so we're really excited about hearing what you've been up to, what you're going to be doing in the future, and sharing some of your ideas around creativity, clay, and I want to talk about your surfaces because I have fallen in love with your surface. So thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It is my favorite subject, you know.
Yes, yes, mine
I
too.
never get tired about talking about my work. It's like my
Yeah,
life.
yeah, that's awesome. So, speaking about your life, I wonder if you could give us a sense of your journey in clay. Where did you start off? I know you were born in New Brunswick, Canada, and ended up completely on the other side of the continent. But
Thank
tell
God
us a
for
little
that.
bit
I
about
love
your
it
journey.
here.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it on Vancouver Island.
Tell us a little bit about your journey in clay.
Well, yeah, like many potters, it started when I was young. I walked into the art room in grade eight. Back then, I think there was more available in the schools than there is today. So I'm sure it's a lot different now. Touched clay, connected with it. It was the first thing in my life that I really, other than books and reading, that I really connected with. And I was addicted right away. So that's why I call it the first chapter in my first book is called Love at First Touch. And it literally was. It was love at first touch. I've never done anything else for a living, and I'm self-taught. So, which I used to think of as a really big drawback. I was so envious of the people that got to go to art school and got to have like proper training and all that, because I was just looking at books. And, I was shy back then. And so I'd go to other people's studios, but I wouldn't ask them much. I just kind of peek around and that. But as I got older and my work progressed, I remember one day just looking at my work and realizing, wait a second, my work is truly my own, 100%. And I hadn't really thought of it that way. Obviously everybody is, when you're younger and you're starting out, you're looking at other people's work and you're learning from other people's work. That's how we start, right? And so there were different inspirations there and such. But I think probably because I didn't have any formal training, I had to come up with my own ideas, and there was nobody for me to ask. And somehow I just turned into what I've turned into, what it is, my own work.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, so that makes me wonder what was most important to you in your self-taught journey. Was it a book? Was it a opportunity to see somebody's work in a studio? Like what have you got a sense of, I don't know, maybe there's one or two things that were critical for your learning.
Form. I was completely focused on form. Uh, I didn't think that I would be any good at glazes because I failed math and science, and I don't really understand a lot of things. As I tell people, I can tell you my rabbit trail, but I can't necessarily explain it. But when I was a youngster, I was fascinated with Coper's forms. And I actually used to ask myself almost, I was like 15 years old. I'm at the Victoria Public Library looking at these old black and white photos and the little pictures of Coper's forms and thinking, why do I like that work so much? Because I didn't have any real understanding. But all the other work that was around at the time just sort of went over my head. It just didn't pull me the way his work did. And I was also very into the amphora, the just the basic classic vase form, and just the beauty in a very simple form. Which I often talk about form in a way. It's like the human body. There's a reason why photographers are always photographing the nude. You know, just simplicity and form. In a way, for me, trumps everything. It's just that's where it's at, and that was my main focus.
That's
Glazing came later.
yeah, that's
Glazing, in a way, was a necessary evil.
it's interesting. My first teacher in clay many years ago said exactly the same thing. He said, Bob,
Yeah.
you must focus on form. You can always do the glazing later. Like it was a
Yeah.
second thought, right?
Well, honestly, you need to have a good form first, anyhow, before you can really move forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it does
Awesome.
make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got a variety of kind of work. Now, this is an audio only podcast, and so people are going to have to go to your website and your Instagram page, which we'll put up on our site so people can find you easily. But you've got a wide variety of work from functional ware, tableware to chalices to vessels to sculpture. Tell us a little bit about that range of work and how that emerges from your mind, Mary. That's a lot of different designs.
I'm so many personalities. Wait while I dig one out.
Yeah,
So I started with tableware. I actually had no idea I was an artist when I was younger. And people would refer to me as an artist. I would correct them. I'm like, no, I'm a craftsperson. I'm a potter. Eventually, of course, I did accept the mantle. But tableware was my thing. And then at one point, I suppose I just thought, well, I'm paying the bills with the tableware, but I'm not feeling quite as fulfilled. And I really wanted to experiment more and learn more. And I started taking how to do that then when you're trying to earn a living and pay your rent. So the system that I came up with was I gave myself 3 weeks to work on the tableware, and then I had 1 week to work on the artwork. And my rule for myself, I work really well with rules, was that when it came to the artwork, I was not allowed to consider sales.
ah, what a great idea.
Right? Take that right out of the picture. Okay. Because
Absolutely.
you're making the casseroles and the this and that, and those are paying the bills. How are you actually, and that's giving to me in one way. I always refer to doing the artwork as somewhat like doing a marathon, and that you can't keep going at that forever. You burn out. So, and then it's really nice to switch over and go jogging. And to me, going jogging is was doing the tableware, right? And then, as you know, at first I didn't know what to do with my week, didn't have a clue. But I write about that in my first book. So I'm not going to spoil my first book by going into how I sort of sorted all that out. But eventually, all of a sudden, the 1 week wasn't enough. And then the artwork started selling. And then, everything just sort of moves along. So I'm always telling the young potters, follow your dreams. If you're having a dream, find a way to follow it.
Yeah. And what it sounds like, though, that not only are you following a dream, you allowed the dream to emerge. You spent that first little while, that first week, you called it, right, of sitting and staring at something, no doubt, going, "Oh my Lord, what have I done here?"
Exactly. We have to allow ourselves to feel the uncomfortableness. And when we're feeling really uncomfortable in our creative zone or body, we just want to run from it, right? And the trick is to make yourself sit with it
Yeah.
and then see
Tell us
what
more about
comes.
that. That's very interesting. What do you mean that tell us what somebody might recognize if they're sitting and feeling uncomfortable with their work?
Uh, Sorry, a bit of a brain fart. I don't really quite know how to. I mean, I don't know how to answer that, I guess. I know how I feel when I'm uncomfortable, and then I think the trick is to find out what am I uncomfortable about,
Hmm. And
right?
how do you do that?
And then, well, I figure out what I'm uncomfortable about, and then I have to figure out how to become more comfortable with it. Right. So if I'm sitting in my studio and I don't know what to make, um, I just need to sit with that. And then what I ended up doing was I realized I needed to start, but I didn't know what to start on. So what I did was I looked at pieces that I liked by other people that inspired me, and I almost copied them. They weren't going to go out in a marketplace. They were just to get me started, right? And then once I got started, all of a sudden, the piece that I'd been copying, so to speak, was changing and it was becoming my own. And the thing is to get yourself out of the rut and just to start moving, right? If we stay cemented in our fear, nothing really happens. So sometimes we have to find little ways to fool ourselves almost. Okay, so you don't have an idea. Well, you like that person's work. Let's make a piece like that. Oh, well, that looks good. And then as you're throwing, things can shift a little bit and you got a slightly different form, and then that takes you off into another direction. And before you know it, you're moving. But if you just stay anchored in your fear, of course, not much happens.
Nothing happens then. It sounds like to me, in some ways, this notion of facing this uncomfortableness
Yeah.
is being able to acknowledge the your heart and not so much your head, right? Getting out of the head part of who's going to buy this, how much will
Yeah.
it cost, how much clay do I need, all those kind of things, and really allowing that heart experience to come out in your fingers as you're throwing or working with slabs.
Well, and also allowing yourself to fail. We need to, like, we look at failure as like we have this whole negative, like all these negative things around failure. Failure is how we learn. I wish people would start embracing failure because every time you fail at something, you're actually learning, right? And from that failure, then comes your next step and your next step.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've got your one of your pages from your website up on my screen as we're having this conversation, and I look at your beautiful work. And as you say that, that made me realize that I bet you a few pieces have ended up in the bin at your studio, and because often what we do is we show people our best work, as opposed to showing them the errors that we've made or the mistakes we've made.
Well, actually, I have a bit of a confession to make there. I um I always tell the or suggest. No, okay, I tell them I'm a bit of a bossy one. The young potters that they keep their best work all through their life, right from the beginning. Nobody is going to appreciate your best work like you will,
Mm,
ever,
that's true.
right?
That's true.
So
Absolutely.
often that urge is, and I have to tell the apprentices, I know the urge is to get the best work out there right away because you want to grow your reputation and all this stuff. But keep some of it. Keep some of those pieces that you know you're going to feel like chewing off your hand before parting with it. Keep that piece. You can always sell it later, right? Don't need to sell it today. And I'm a real hoarder. Like I've got a lot of my own work. And some pieces have never been exhibited, and I have no intention of ever exhibiting. They'll become part of the legacy collection.
Mm.
But they're all my very best pieces. On occasion, I do sell my best pieces as well. Obviously, I can't keep them all. But I'm selective in who I will let purchase them because I only want them to go into collections where I know they're truly appreciated for what they are, right? And
That is a great idea, Mary, of
some people
keeping your
don't,
own work.
yeah, some people don't, some people come into the gallery and honestly, I could have a grade A piece right beside a grade B piece right beside a grade C, and they won't really notice much of a difference. Whereas somebody will come in and they'll see the three pieces and they'll zero in right away on grade A, right? And they know it and they see it and they understand it, right? That's where the grade A piece. So then I'm like, oh, I'm okay with that going off then.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
It's a
yeah.
whole different thing.
Yeah, it's about a relationship, really, not only
It
with the
it
piece, but
is.
with the person who's buying the piece from
Oh, totally it is. Totally it is. Sometimes people are surprised when I say, oh, I don't actually want to sell that piece, or, I'll think about it, right? Because, money is like the tide, comes and goes, right? But the work, I still remember a couple of pieces from when I was a lot younger that I sold that I still regret selling. They've haunted me all this time. And why did I sell them? Because they were new pieces. They were pieces I was proud of, and I wanted to put my best foot forward. And sure, but if I had my time over again, there were a lot of other good pieces.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. Hey, tell us a little bit more about your work and how you approach the varying surfaces and colors that you use in your work.
Well, I never realized I like to learn so much. But apparently I do. And because I work in the low temperature ranges, for my decorative work, all my decorative work has always been between '08 and '04. And it's always been on a raku clay body, and I've never deviated from that. Uh, One of the beautiful things about working in that low temperature range, and specifically in a raku clay body, is that you can refire. So you can start to approach your pots in a way like a painter does by layering up your surfaces. And how I all started stumbling into this was, of course, by doing a piece that didn't look good. Like in my second book, Developing Glazes, my favorite chapter to write is called Never Say Die. And there I take the really ugly pots that, you're looking at it and you're like, oh my God, this is hideous. Where's the hammer? Like, wait a second. Why don't we try this? Okay, comes out of the kiln. It's still hideous. Okay, why don't we try this? And then eventually there's the butterfly. But we are so as soon as we have something that we don't like, we want to take it away. We want to hammer it. We want to take it and just remove it. We don't want to have those feels, right? Um, but if you start to look at it as just a starting point, right? Then okay, well I can cover that. So I cover it with something and that doesn't work. But I learned that that doesn't work, right? And so I think by just playing around and constantly having that kind of perspective, then I just kept stumbling onto, oh my gosh, look at that. Who knew? Right?
Yeah. And in a way, that's you still allowing yourself to sit with the uncomfortable. You
Yeah.
saw this piece that wasn't very good, you didn't like it,
Yep.
yeah, but you sat with it and learned with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're so unwilling to sit with the uncomfortable,
Mhm.
right? So once you start breaking that pattern in yourself, it really changes your life in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great life lesson.
It is.
Because often I hear about people feeling anxious these days and
Yep.
stressed out, and really anxiety at the root is us running from something that we think will turn out to be bad, when
Right.
the vast majority of time it will not. And so that's a great life lessons for you, for people. Awesome.
Oh,
Hey, so
yeah.
what's capturing your imagination these days with your work?
Well, the second book, this Developing Glazes. So when I was a kid and I started out, it was the tableware we were doing in high school was earthenware, and then we got to do cone six. And I we had the little jars of glazes, and they were ugly as sin. And I did make a few glazes myself, but the earthenware work, I didn't like the finishes, I didn't like the glazes, and I couldn't wait to move away from it. And I think it's absolutely freaking hysterical that now, what am I on about? Earthenware. So I've come full circle. I never in a million years saw this coming. And right now, I'm kind of fascinated with going back into the earthenware tableware because there are, as you know, there are gazillion potter's myths, right? And they just keep getting added to. And one of the big ones is how fragile earthenware is. And I'm like, well, okay, there's an argument for everything. If you take a porcelain bowl, and everybody will say porcelain is the strongest, or bone china, and you crack it, it springs open because it's under so much tension. It's shrunk so much. You can't use that piece anymore. Even if it hasn't cracked in half, with that crack, it's going to leak. Now, I've seen bread bowls that are 100 years old look like death warmed over and somebody's still using them, right? Because earthenware, you get that, it doesn't spring open. It's not under that kind of tension. Usually the clay is a little bit thicker, right? So which is actually stronger. So there's so many different ways to measurement things. Now, one of the drawbacks with earthenware, of course, is sweating. That is an issue. But a lot of that too comes down to glaze fit. So if you get the fit of the glaze just so and the clay body just so, you solve that problem. But all these things take a little bit more work, maybe a little bit more thought. Uh, so I've when developing the glazes, the tableware glazes, I was really focused on the sweating and getting that one sorted.
Can you
Uh,
explain, just about in for, can you explain sweating for the
oh,
audience in
that's
case
okay.
somebody doesn't
So
know what that is?
you fill a bowl of soup and you put it on your oak table, and then you lift it up later, and there's a damp ring there. That's sweating, right? Um, and Also with earthenware, one thing I've noticed, okay, so I have a glaze on the inside of a nice earthenware bowl, but on the outside, I've been experimenting with my terra sigillatas. And my latest technique has been just doing, instead of completely coating the outside in a solid coat of terra sigillata, I've just been doing the first go around. So it kind of looks, so you still have the brush marks. It kind of looks like wood, and I love the look. But if you leave it soaking, if you put just your soup in it, it'll be fine. It won't sweat. But if you left it soaking in a sink full of water, because the outside isn't glazed and it's not as vitrified, and then you go and put it on a table or something, then you've got that moisture in the clay body. So there are certain things that you need to figure out around. So there are a few more challenges. But the other plus, of course, is that it uses considerably less energy. For the young potters, your elements in your kilns will last way longer. Because you're firing low. Um, One thing I always mention to the young potters too is when you're replacing your elements in a kiln, use cone 10 elements, right? They're stronger.
Mm-hmm. For
So
sure.
even if you're not firing to cone 10, you're only firing to cone 6. I would put the cone, I've always put the cone 10 elements in. They last so much longer. You don't have the warping of shelves at the lower temperature ranges. You actually have a larger color palette because your color palette changes and shrinks as you go up in temperature. Uh, and then, of course, the thing that's really mind-blowing to me too is that nobody has been firing tableware at 04 in reduction. And when I was starting, this has been one of my little mysteries and things I've wanted to chase ever since I got the Blau kiln is low fire reduction. I say, because I Google it, and sure, there's lusterware, but that's cone two. And I could find nobody that was firing earthenware oh 04 reduction. And I love putting one of my platters in a visiting potter's hand and say, what do you think this is? And like, reduction? And like, would you believe it's oh 04 reduction?
Yeah, wow.
So how often in a field do you find an area that is just not very researched?
Hardly ever.
Hardly ever.
Yeah.
So why I'm thinking that nobody's really thought about exploring this particularly. With the low fire reduction, it's been the raku, uh, sagar work, these things, but the tableware is just kind of it's not even been in the picture. And there's a couple of different clay bodies I work with. The Tacoma Clay Arts creates Darcy's clay art with mica clay body that you have to special order, and it is the strongest of all the earthenware clays I've used to date. It is really, really good. And it fired in reduction is incredibly strong at OFAR. Now, I'm learning, of course, as it is with most reduction firing, that it's the irons, the glazes with the irons that really give you the fascinating surfaces and such. The other, cobalt, and this is just generally blue or tone. So, um, it's to me, I just, I just have so many ideas I want to chase down with this.
I bet you that you've got an experimental piece in each kiln firing that you do.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But you
very.
know what? I used to think, oh, that takes too much time
Oh, yeah.
when I was younger, right? That was
Yeah,
kind of, oh, do I have time for that? And
yeah.
I try to drum into the apprentices that we start out into being an artist with all this joy around our work, and we can end up um, kind of becoming a slave to making a living, and that slowly, which I mean, that is a reality, but we can lose track of giving to ourselves, right? So even when I was younger, I would always, Friday was the day that I would give myself to throw bowls or whatever, I really felt like. The thing is to give to ourselves all the time. And now I've forgotten what the question was.
It's okay. That's okay. I mean, really, there's another life lesson, right? So we've talked about a really good lesson of sitting and being comfortable with being uncomfortable,
Right.
and the other lesson is be kind to yourself and follow your heart.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. And it was about putting a test in the kiln. So that's a
Mhm.
way of giving to yourself,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
absolutely. Now, you've also written a couple of books, if I recall
Yes.
correctly. Can you tell us about your two books that you've written?
Okay, so the first book, My Life as a Potter, that is written to inspire the young potters to realize that even though this is an incredibly challenging field to earn a living at, you can do it. Because my life, as anybody that's read the book will know, has not been a cakewalk. And yet somehow I've ended up where I am. And that is because of my focus. I never deviated. I didn't go off in different directions. It was always the clay. Um, so for the first section of the first book, it starts when I walk into the art room in grade 8, and it's a personal memoir, and it brings you through to present time, and it'll talk about why I went down certain trails. Like, why did I start developing the crawl glazes? Why did I start developing the lithium work? So all that is kind of talked about in amongst my stories in the first section. And then when you move into the second section, the technical section, they're further explained. And I like to write my books so that whether you're a potter or not, you're both going to enjoy and understand what I'm saying. So it's very gratifying to me when somebody that's not a potter says they thoroughly enjoyed the book and they got what I was putting down,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
very good.
Like, that's a
Now you
win.
got it. Now you got a second book, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so tell us
Yes.
about your second book.
So the second book, Developing Glazes, that was designed to because potters are always coming in and they look at the variety of work that I do. Um, and of course, there's work from over the years, so it's not like I'm doing a variety all the time. I work in series. So if I'm doing something, that's what I'm doing. And I just focus on that until I'm sated, and then I'll move on to something else, right? And then the pieces take years to sell. And so there's a ton of variety. You can find pieces that are 10 years old, 15 years old down in the gallery. But I wanted to show the potters how I learn. And also, I wanted to bring back the notion of bringing play back into our work. We're losing the ability to play as adults. And especially these days, like life is dark. And we need to find ways to lighten up and give ourselves permission to play, make mistakes, explore without all these preconceived notions that everything needs to work out. So I gave myself a challenge. I'm like, okay, so I'm a baby potter. I'm starting out. What would I do? And I would go online and I would find some glaze recipes. So I went online. I picked, I think it was 4 or 5 glaze recipes that I'd never used before. And I thought, okay, I'll use those. And then I told myself, okay, and you can use terra sigillatas and you can use minerals. And that is it. Start. And then I documented every step of the way what I was doing. So when I put one layer on a piece, I'd photograph it and write about it, and then I put it in a kiln, and then it comes out, and I'm like, okay, I think that's nice. Now let's try this. So I basically take you along on my learning journey, and then you see through the photographs what it is I'm doing, and what works, what doesn't work, and I'm hoping that I mean, I know that the potters will take the book and they'll do exactly what I've written. They'll get different results, and that'll be amazing, and they'll learn from that. But I'm also hoping that through that process, they'll start to think about what they're doing slightly different, and they'll start to play more, and they'll start to think like, well, look what she did with borax. I wonder what, this would do. And then maybe they'll try it. I had no idea you could do so much with borax. Borax blew me away. Still does.
But one of the things that I hear you talking about that, if we're on to lessons here today, there's another lesson, is really instead of experimenting with just one-offs, right, of trying a glaze or trying it once, you do things in a very rational, logical, sequential framework of I'll try this, then I'll modify it and I'll move here, and then I take a photograph, I write my notes down, I'll do the next step until you get to the end where you've that's almost like a series, but you're creating this learning all the way through until you get to the end of your experiment.
Well, one of the biggest mistakes I used to make, and most potters make, is I'd make a glaze, I'd glaze something in it, it wouldn't turn out nice, and I'd say, well, that's not a good glaze, is it? Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Not understanding back then. I mean, now we have the computers on the kilns, it's so much easier in so many ways to develop beautiful glazes. But just not understanding that, oh, maybe that glaze should have been thicker. Maybe that glaze should have been thinner. Maybe that glaze should be on a different clay body. Uh, maybe I fired it too hot. Maybe I fired it too low. It's not necessarily that the glaze is a bad glaze.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
But that's human nature. Oh, that's no good. So you're testing hundreds of glazes.
Hmm.
So with the apprentices now, um, in the first year, they have to learn how to create my tableware, and they glaze it with the glazes that are available for them. In the second year, they continue to do that, but they get 1 week a month to develop their own line of work. And the first thing I do is I make a rule around the glazes and every single one of them pushes me on it. Okay, I say I do not want to see more than four glazes. I want you to start out with one. You pick a base, explore that, and then, bring me another base you want to explore. Explain to me why, and that. And at the end of the day, I do not want to see more than four. Because what happens otherwise is you just start testing ad infinitum. You're jumping all over the place, and you're not actually learning that much about the glazes because you haven't experimented enough with them to find out what they're actually capable of. You tried them on one or two things.
Yeah. Mary Fox, the experimenter. I like that. Hey, now you've mentioned your apprentices, and I know you've got the Legacy Project, which is
Yeah.
really about you giving back to the Potters community. Tell us a little bit about your project and what you're up to there.
Oh, gosh, it sure has grown. It's a lot of work for when I'm dead. A lot of work for when I'm alive. So initially, the concept was that the pottery here, when I rebuilt the house, I rebuilt it with the project in mind, that when I passed, this would become a residency for potters. And so then I eventually became a society. We have an endowment fund, and we also have an artist housing fund because we're trying to raise money for artist housing. Then, as things progressed, I realized, well, offering an apprenticeship program at this point in my life would be great. A good way for the project to help grow the young potters, and I can't keep up with everything around here. So I decided I'll start a 2 year traditional apprenticeship program, and we're now on our third apprentice. Cherry McIntosh, who is our youngest apprentice ever. She's 18 and completely rocking it. She's doing a fantastic job. Our first graduated apprentice, Sarah Wilson, has opened a gallery down on First Avenue here in town. And when you walk into her gallery, it's the same sort of model as here. You walk into a gallery space, and then her studio space is behind. So you get that sort of vibe. And the second apprentice, Sabrina Sancho, is in Vancouver, and she's just starting figuring out things and where she's going to go. And she's in a joint studio space now and developing her work.
So can anybody apply to be an apprentice with you? How does that work?
So if you go on the website, there's a page all about the apprenticeship program, and it covers everything. And there's an application process.
Yeah.
It's the second year of the apprenticeship, so not this year. So 227, it would open up for the month of June. People can apply. And then at the end of June, I just take all the applications and I go through them and I start the process of deciding who's going to be the next apprentice. And it's a
Yeah.
2 year full-time commitment. So
Yeah.
they work they get 3 weeks holiday a year. It's a paid position.
Ah,
And they work 5 days a week, 8 hours a day.
it's a job.
It's a job.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very cool. Now, I've hired a lot of people in my day, interviewed many more than we hired. How do you pick? You might get quite a few applicants. What are your criteria? How do you decide who's going to be let into your program?
Yes, I'm asked that frequently. Um, People assume is on the quality of the work,
Mm,
and it isn't.
mhm.
Uh, Really, for me, I want to help the young. So the emphasis, I have had to tell people, yeah, I'm sorry, the whole legacy project is focused on the young. So yeah, I'm sorry,
You're too old.
you're 50s now, you had your chance, right?
Sure, sure.
I can only take one potter every 2 years. So ideally, I want them to be 35 or under,
Yeah.
um, preferably under 30. And so far, every apprentice has been under 30. Um, and it comes down to basically a good fit because we're working cheek to jowl,
Hmm.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're in my home. They're here 5 days a week. We need to get along. We need to understand each other. There's a really good vibe around here. People need to be able to, if they have a feeling, they need to be able to talk about it and not just carry it around like an extra suitcase, you know? So
Absolutely.
and so far I haven't made a mistake.
That's good. That's good. Well, I think if you do, at least in my experience, if you do a really good job at I'll call it the assessment phase of
Yes.
figuring out if it's a good fit, you really increase your odds of having somebody on board. So that's great. Hey,
Yeah.
I don't know whether this is even possible for you given your creativity and energy that you've got, but have you ever encountered something where you felt like you've lost your mojo or you've lost your creativity a little bit and how you got that back?
Okay, well, I don't want to ruin the first book for people. Um, but I didn't work for 5 years. And my that changed me for sure. Uh, and I never thought I'd be able to work again. So when I was able to start working again, I had a completely different approach. And I really go into that in depth in my first book. So I don't want to dive too far into that. Um, but I've never, to me, I've never actually lost my mojo, so to speak. To me, people are always saying, well, what inspires you? And what actually inspires me is being creative. And the more you create, the more you create, and everything just leads to more. So whereas when you're young and you're starting out and you think, oh, I have no ideas, and like, well, that's natural because you haven't delved into it yet. Those will come, right? And now at this point in life, people say, oh, I've got this idea, and I'm like, keep it to yourself. Good enough, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of overwhelming in here.
Yes, yes, I understand exactly what you mean. I feel I'm a little like that myself. So I get what you're saying. So that's very cool. Hey, this has been awesome for you to be here with us today. We've talked about your work and some of your really outstanding ideas in terms of creativity and getting the work done. And I'm sure you might get a few extra applications
Oh,
from
I hope
people from
so.
around the world. That would be very cool.
Oh,
Uh,
it's only open to Canadian residents.
oh, it's only open to Canadian residents.
Yeah, I get a lot, I was getting a lot of requests from abroad, but I can only take one person.
Okay, cool. Well, maybe you'll get some applications from some people across the country. That would be,
Oh, I will, I'm sure.
yes, that would be fun. Hey, thanks so much for being here today. It's been outstanding. Really appreciate you being here, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Oh, I did. It was great fun.
Yeah,
Okay. And yeah, just follow me on social media. I'll keep you up to date on things. And on the website, we have a blog, and there's a new one that's just gone up about a new project we're started calling Legacy Studios. And that is very exciting. So I'll just put a little plug in for that for people to read about it.
awesome. Thank you so much, Mary.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.